What if AI created real value for your business, for your people, for you? What if you were truly empowered to cut your lead times in halves, empowered to prepare twice as many quotes with the same resources, empowered to enter new markets at 1/3 the cost? Epicor Prism is made with and for makers, movers, and sellers, and it is making business better for Madsen Custom Cabinets, who says, "We're excited for Epicor Prism to help take off the load of mundane tasks so our staff can focus on the stuff that's producing value." What can Epicor Prism do for you? Take a look. The user asks Epicor Prism, "Get me a list of RMAs." Instantly, Epicor Prism processes the request and displays an interactive grid of open return merchandise authorizations. The user can easily sort, filter, and interact with the data directly from the grid view. The user spots a metric on the screen and asks Epicor Prism, "What % of receipts are late?" Epicor Prism instantly interprets the data and provides a clear response, giving the percentage directly in the chat. Rather than creating a new metric or pulling out a calculator, users can simply ask a question and get the answer immediately. In a world powered by Epicor Prism, every day is efficient. Every day is full of opportunity. Every day is easier with Epicor.
Hi, and welcome to the third day of our first ever Metal Fabrication Strategy Summit webinar series from Metal Forming Magazine and the Precision Metal Forming Association. I'm Luke Krenz, Senior Editor of Metal Forming, a publication of PMA, and I'm very pleased and excited to welcome you this morning. The first 2 days of the summit featured keynote speakers, followed by panel sessions. Today, we go straight to our 2 panels. The first focused on workforce development, and the second on growing your customer base. But before we get started, just a few notes about today's Zoom meeting. The meeting is being recorded for archiving, and the recorded event will be posted to our website within the next few days. We'll let you know via email when the recorded webinar is available for viewing online and for sharing with others in your company. Also, participants in this meeting are in listen-only mode. The speaker and other listeners will not be able to hear any audio from your site during the program. However, you do have the ability to communicate with us throughout the program by submitting your questions and comments using the Q&A button located on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Questions will be addressed in the time allotted at the end of the webinar presentation. And please ask questions of our panelists. We want this to be interactive, and panelists want to hear and speak to your questions and concerns. Okay, now it's my pleasure to introduce the first of 2 panel sessions today, Workforce Recruitment, Training, and Retention, moderated by Connie King, Workforce Development Director at the Precision Metal Forming Association. Take it away, Connie.
Thanks, Lou. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Lou said, I'm the Workforce Development Director here at PMA, and I want to thank our fabulous panelists for being with us. We have Stephanie Lowry, Mike Lauber, and Chris Zuzek, and no one can say anything better about themselves than themselves, so I'm going to turn it over and let them introduce themselves real quick. Go ahead, Stephanie, why don't you start and just kind of work your way over?
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me to be a panelist. I was very excited for this opportunity. So I am the CEO of Dayton Rogers. Dayton Rogers is a sheet metal stamping and fabricating company, and we're an industry leader. We've been around since 1929. We have 4 different locations, Minneapolis, Columbus, Ohio, Columbia, South Carolina, and Arlington, Texas. So kind of all over the U.S. We do all kinds of stuff, stampings, all different stampings, progressive, modular, deep draws, fabrication, so lasers, turrets, brake presses, lots of different types of welding, some CNC machining. We assemble quite a bit, and we also have in-house tool room. I have been with the company since 2010, so about 15 years now, and I've done all kinds of things throughout the history of my tenure here. So I've learned a lot, and I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Lauber, Chairman and CEO of Tusco MFG. I'm based here in rural Ohio. We have about 105,000 square feet, a little less than 100 people. We do sheet metal fabricating. About half of our business, though, is focused on designing, engineering, and producing custom store fixtures and point-of-purchase displays. But we really partner with clients who are looking for solution-driven vendors, somebody like us. We tend to keep clients a long time, work in sheet metal tubing. In addition to the traditional fab kind of stuff, we also do powder coating, some machining work, some woodworking, even plastic fabricating as well.
Great. Chris?
Hi, Chris Uzik. Good morning with Waukesha Metal Products. We are a contract manufacturing company. We do metal stamping, metal fabrication, assembly. We have 3 locations, 2 in Wisconsin and 1 in Mexico. We're probably just shy of 200 employees. Our Mexico facility is primarily all automotive to tier 1. Our Wisconsin facility is a mix between some automotive and other mix would be energy storage, HVAC. We're pretty diverse in a lot of different areas, and looking forward to having the chat today. I'm also serving on the executive board of PMA. So this is a great event for our members, and hope we continue to do this to get people encouraged about fabrication and stamping in our industry.
Right. Thanks again for everyone. So let's just kick this off. So, as workforce development director, and we have a lot of discussions about that topic. In our One Voice that we have weekly webinars on, and our Harbor Research, which is something that we can, as a member of PMA, you have access to. We have a lot of discussions about what the challenges are, and workforce comes up to the top of that discussion very often. So let's kind of go around the horn and say, what is one of your top workforce challenges at your organization? Feel free to chime in.
I'm not sure.
Well, I'm happy to. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Mike. Okay. Our biggest challenge is really making the mindset change from traditional recruiting to what I would say selling the value of being in manufacturing. We have to start thinking outside the box with regards to what is going to engage somebody to join our organization, and selling them like we sell our customers on the value of working for our organization, what it means for you today, tomorrow, and the future. And that's a different mindset. That's completely different than the traditional ways of doing it. We have to sell people, kids whose parents had a very negative feeling of manufacturing during the late 70s and 80s. So it's selling them on the value of coming to work at our company, Waukesha Metal Products, and on top of it, it's selling the value of being in manufacturing and all the things that are beneficial to that type of vocation. So it's a different mindset, and that's the biggest challenge we have in our industry right now.
I'm going to echo some of what you're saying, Chris. Encouraging people to in the community to consider manufacturing as a potential career lane. So many of our most successful people here never saw themselves, weren't trained in any manufacturing way, but in fact have the skills and the mindset that has fit in really well for us. So I think a large part of what we do, half of our marketing efforts are to the community about coming to work in manufacturing. The other half is to, find and, identify and connect with prospective clients, but prospective associates. I've been around long enough that I know I could put a sign out on the front door saying, accepting applications, and have a line, an hour later. That isn't the case anymore. So making sure that we're presenting ourselves effectively and encouraging people with open houses, with a variety of other social media to encourage people to consider manufacturing when they're thinking about what they might do for a job.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Stephanie, how about you?
So for us, I mean, we're definitely experiencing those same types of challenges, but I think for us, one of the things that has really come to light in the last couple of years is the skills gap. So what I mean by that is I don't think it's just a hiring problem. I think it's a developmental challenge. Like the soft skills, the problem solving, the critical thinking, the communication, all of that is stuff that we're seeing a little bit of a challenge with, but the technical expertise is really where kind of the rubber meets the road. And you don't have people coming in that have these skills, right? We have schools that are starting to train on them, but I feel like there's a huge gap between having somebody be ready to start on your shop floor and the silver tsunami that's coming of retirees that we're already starting to see and kind of feel. So I think retention is and kind of upskilling those individuals and those employees is going to be a challenge for us. We're already starting to experience that. So I'm just hoping that that we're able to deploy enough technological advancements within our workforce to kind of bridge that gap while we're training these employees that are coming in, because we're finding people that want to work, they just don't know what they're doing.
Right. To play off that a little bit, I'm gonna jump to a question for Chris on that one. So back, like, let's go back years, right? And say like World War II, there was right there, that was a big thing that people knew how to do these skills right back then. And so let's go back to when we knew how to do that, and there's a gap now, right? So there's this big gap. So we have not focused on that in the time from between then and now. And now we have a big problem. So let's look at that for like Chris.
Well,
talk about that in your era, right? Not your era,
Yeah.
but talk about that in your industry and in your company. Let's bring that into you. How are you working on something like that? And that, going back to World War II, we had those skills. And I was thinking of this. I was watching a movie. Say, for example, I was watching The Deer Hunter with my son, and Mike, you said, put that sign out. I know, we put that sign out, right? And they worked in the manufacturing, they worked in the plant. That sign was out front, and everybody in that community worked at that plant. And that doesn't happen anymore. You can't put that sign out front. Not everybody's working there. And Chris, and I know Dean had some of these questions developed, and you this was a question he had for you about how do we protect these skills that were around years ago, and they're not here anymore, and that gap has developed.
Yeah,
What do we do?
I think it's a little bit of I'll use the word pride. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but I go back to, and I'm a history buff, so you go back to pre-World War II, and the great buildup of our military. That was an era of, we got to do what's right for the country, and companies on a dime changed their approach from making vehicles to making tanks, from making dishes to making weapons. So there was a little bit of that pride of America, and and you're right, we've kind of lost that a little bit. But I think I go back to my point before on, marketing the value of why manufacturing is important for this country. And you raised a couple of cycles ago, Mike said it too. It's, you put a sign out saying wanted, and that's not selling the value. Okay, we need a live body. And I think I'm a big believer if we can provide a level of interest in manufacturing with a potential employee. We're willing to train them through PMA. We're willing to give them the skills. We need a mindset of I'm willing to step up to the plate, earn my keep, and earn my stripes. That's the thing that we're trying to create, is the value of working in our company, the value of manufacturing, what we are doing day in and day out to build parts that are for safety of vehicles or storing energy, whatever the case may be, selling that value proposition. And it's, again, I think going back into pre-World War II, it was just, that was part of our DNA. And we've lost some of that during, for obvious reasons, during the 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe even in the 80s a little bit. But I think it's, and I don't want to bleed issues in, but also the cost of education is a heck of a lot different today than it was during, the late 40s, early 40s, excuse me. And that's an aspect of this that is, I don't want to get into it now, but that's an aspect that's really critical that we need to address.
Well, I want to jump in, if I may, and say, and actually ask a question of the other panelists. But what have you seen? And I know you're both active in this, in career and technical education. We've seen here in Ohio a huge upswing in interest in CTE. Our local career center for high school students, juniors and seniors, has grown 50% in their total enrollment in about 6 years. So we're finding a lot of kids saying, hey, this is a good way to go. And people are understanding that the trades, as they may be defined in a variety of ways, are a good way to go. That's a way for me to get a good job and have a career in something I'm interested in. Are you seeing the same thing in your areas?
Absolutely. Yeah. The schools that we've partnered with around our facilities, they are all very interested in hearing what the manufacturing world has to say. They're creating training programs or certification courses specifically for those types of roles. And also just what I'm happy to see, or one of the things that I'm excited about, is that I'm starting to see classes that will teach them proficiency in, like basic shop math, understanding tolerances, using measuring equipment, calipers, micrometers, those sorts of things. And the mechanical aptitude of those students coming out of those programs is so much higher than we've seen in the past. So I feel like the quality is starting to catch up. Again, it's just going to be bridging that gap between, the kids that are coming out now versus, the last 10, 15 years of students that, have all these fancy degrees and, can't measure anything with a micrometer. So
it is a big thing that we hear from the industry. Those are some of the skills that are missing. And we encourage, some of our members as well that we see, and, we're going to Ohio because we'll bring that up because that's where we're based as PMA, that the measurements of the schools as well is that they're measured by how many students go to college. And it's not necessarily whether they finish, it's that they go. That's a measurement of your state, and you're looking at, if your the CTEs are big, your technical schools, change the measurement and talk to your lobbyists, or talk to your senators, and talk to your Congress people and so forth, and maybe change those measurements as well, and say your career schools are just as important as your colleges, right? It's not just one, it's both. right? Look at both avenues for students. Career schools are just as important for these types of industries, so that manufacturing and other technical vocations are just as important to go into. Let's go back to some of your hiring things that we talked about at the very beginning, right? Of your challenges of hiring and so forth. What type of new technologies are in your hiring realms? What are you using? Mike, let's use you for an example. What are you using to attract and retain or attract new employees? What type of technologies are you using to attract people in your hiring skills?
Well, again, in some ways it's pretty low tech, and in other ways not so. One is just getting people in our facility. Again, holding open houses so people know more about what it is we do, that it's manufacturing today is no longer the dirty, dark, and dangerous place that it was, as Chris alluded to earlier. The second thing, though, is increasingly tech-savvy folks, particularly on the lower end of the age spectrum, are using a variety of AI tools. And if you're not optimized for AI, that you're thinking in SEO, which if I'd said SEO 15 years ago, many of us would have said, I have no idea what CO is. Well, now it's a geo. It's, so how do we, make sure that we're answering questions in our career page and throughout our web presence that people are asking AI search engines. We're finding people are finding us that way. We're also finding clients and prospective clients around the world are finding us by using the same kind of large language models that people use to write a speech or draft an email. So using not just search engine optimization, but optimizing for the AI as well.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
would agree with that. I would agree with that 100%. I think the creativity of our business and where we have to go from creativity, efficiency, being nimble is driving a level of, oh, I didn't realize you could be in front of a computer screen and you can run three brake presses, for example, with automation. Going back to Mike, if you can get them in and see that type of stuff, see the robotic arm moving, seeing the creativity of what you're doing here, what you're doing there, what you're doing, that gets people's attention. Again, I go back to you're selling the value of manufacturing, and you got to get people to touch and feel and understand that. I do think that there is a mindset change in the school system about the value of manufacturing, and that only happens because we as manufacturing companies are pushing that into the school districts. If we don't do it, they're going to go down the path of least resistance and say, okay, you want to be a generalist, go to get a degree in English. Nothing wrong with a degree in English, but what's the end game? And I think that's a big part of what we need to do as well.
Right. And you mentioned AI. So Stephanie, let's talk about that. What are you using AI in your facility? What are you doing with AI in Dayton Rogers?
Yeah, absolutely. AI, for us has become kind of a critical cornerstone of our training program. And I think as it continues to evolve, it's going to be integrated more into everyone's workforce, whether you like it or not. It's coming.
And it's a big term. I mean, it's right. It's broad. It's everyone. Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, some of the things that there's so many, like you said, different facets within AI, but one of the things that we're using it for currently is to kind of hyper personalize the learning experience for the employees. And so what I mean by that is, most people have heard of ChatGPT. But there's all kinds of different types of learning platforms. Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. There's a newer one that we're exploring called Coursebox, and basically it's an AI teaching assistant, and they have all kinds of different stuff like chat bots. Specific course content, like if an employee takes a picture of something and says, help explain this to me, it will go through and it will explain exactly what that is. We've even gotten it down to the point where it's writing work instructions for different things. And of course, you still have to go through that and make it make sense for your business and your company. But I mean, it just takes away all the administrative tasks of it. And it provides the people, the human trainers, the autonomy to be able to, show them more specialized things where the AI is able to, take care of kind of the smaller medial tasks. So we've been using that quite a bit and kind of exploring that, and just on a deeper level for an employee, trying to create a customized training roadmap for them through the learning management system that we have. So, each employee sits down, we check in with them once a month, but we also have, when they first start, we sit down and we talk about, what do you think you want your path here to be? What interests you? And then just continuously checking in, but utilizing the AI to help us literally build that roadmap. So you ask the employee what they want, where they want to go, and you can do things like download their resume into the chat, and then say, this is where this employee wants to go, and this is the time frame in which we want to do it. Please build me a learning path for this employee with customized check-ins, and it spits it out like that.
Yeah.
And then you just have to follow up on it. So it's really good. It's going to help the skills gap. It helps with the analysis of that. It's great.
Right.
There's a lot of spitting going on, which is
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And the good thing about that, I think, from an employee perspective, is that you're saying to them, listen, we're going to give you the tools to be successful, and
Yes.
here are the tools, and and we're going to measure it, and we're going to hold you accountable. But our job is to give you the tools to be successful. That's what good leaders and good leadership companies do, is let's identify the path. Let's put forth the effort to identify where you're going to go, help you get there. Ultimately, it's up to them. And that's the best we can do as leaders, to say, we believe in you. We're going to invest in you. We're going to pay for you to go to school. We're going to pay for education. We're going to pay to work, but we're going to help get to that next level. And I love walking to facilities when I see something on the wall that says, today you're in the shipping receiving department, but if you want to take the path to quality, here's all the things you have to do. And that to me is very beneficial.
100%. It gives them a path to grow. And that's how you're going to retain your workforce.
Absolutely.
That's what the generations want. We know that for sure. Yep. Right. And since this is a Fab Summit, we know that it's a high technology area. So, and we're talking about AI and we're talking about technology. So how do you see us integrating, the fabrication and the technology area, and how does this all integrating in each of your facilities, right? How are you integrating this technology in your business? How are you bringing this into each one of your areas to leverage technology fluent in your workforce?
Well,
throw that out there.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, again, I go back, a couple decades. How much would we have been talking about our learning management system and how tech-enabled it is, that we can customize the LMS per person, as opposed to saying, hey, here are the 4 things you can go out and do. No, we can make it very one-on-one. And let's be candid too. We're smaller businesses. If smaller enterprises can't do this well, we're not going to compete and keep people from going to larger organizations who have more developed things. We have the same resources available to us that the larger organizations do too. But we have the added benefit of, you're going to know the owners, you're going to know the managers, you're going to have a greater stake in a sense of being a part of, an organization than you might in a far-flung, larger operation. So I think using our LMS and the resources associated with it is incredibly exciting. You have some people that take great advantage of it. And for us, that includes people on the floor saying, hey, I'm interested in a career in industrial engineering or mechanical engineering or material sciences or whatever. And we can support that. And they can do it working full-time. They can do it working part-time. And we provide the flexibility that in the past, even that flexibility would have been so difficult because you'd say, oh, you have to deal with the time card and how we're going to do all this. You know what? The systems today that we all employ can handle that kind of flexibility. So we're able to provide people what they need when they need it in a way that they can consume it, and we as our organizations can benefit from it.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that in tandem with that, the tech fluent younger generation, they're not interested in manual labor. They're interested in programming, optimizing things, using AI, machine learning, cobots, automating. They want to do the programming of that. That's what they're learning in school. That's what they're used to. That's what they see. And so I think that as we continue to develop as an industry, these are areas that we really need to focus on, because this is, for fabrication especially, this is where it's going. I mean, it's already there. So if you're not already investing in these types of things, you should start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How are you? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
What I was going to say is that the value of fabrication for our customers and the expectation from the customers is they want us to be nimble. In today's world, they have to be, there's no such thing as there is, but a frozen print. Everything is evolving. Okay. And
100%.
you have to be nimble. You have to be able to think, not in 5-year programs like we do in the automotive world. You have to be thinking in 5-week increments. And, the equipment people are getting it because you look at all the new equipment, they're coming out for efficiency, for training, they're adapting to that one person who's doing coding and, as like I said before, operating 4 or 5 different pieces of equipment. Our customers expect us to adapt, not only from their perspective, what they need from us as a supplier, but they're also expecting us to mitigate risk in the world of employees. And I've said this before, companies leave suppliers not necessarily because of price, because of risk issues. Either they're not training their employees properly, or they look at the census, they look at, you go through an audit, a lot of the audits today are, show me your training plan, show me your path. What are you doing to invest in your biggest asset, which is people? And if we don't do that, there's a risk there. So, it's all kind of coming together.
EHS as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's not just the audit of what can you do and how do you do it, but it's everything that wraps around that too. Are you providing a safe environment? Now we're all required by law to provide a safe environment, but do our customers say, no, I don't consider that sufficiently safe, or I don't like what you're doing environmentally. I need to know what your carbon footprint is. All those sorts of things come into play here too.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Right. As Stephanie, you mentioned cobots. Sort of an interest in that. How do you think you can utilizing them more in the workforce more effectively?
Well, I think that cobots, they're so much more affordable now than they've ever been. There's all kinds of different ways you can use a cobot. I actually just recently went through a plant tour, and I saw a cobot that was taking the material off of the laser, forming it in a brake press, putting it into a checking feature, a laser scanner basically to check all the dimensions on it, and then it dropped into the box. I mean, that's the job of at least 2 people, right? So it's going through and it's doing this. cobots don't take breaks.
Right.
That, but I want to be clear though, I don't think that this is replacing human workers. I think it's designed, or it's going to be designed to work side by side with human staff, right? So
It's there to augment the process. It
yeah,
really is.
exactly. All the what is it? The 3Ds, the dirty, the dull, the dangerous tasks. So anything like that, the repetitive stuff, picking and placing, any heavy lifting, any safety stuff. That's the perfect job for a cobot.
That stuff that you
for
were just talking about. Yeah, that it's helping with that, the safety, the where you're taking some of that risk out of things, where that safety is, where that manual labor that maybe the younger generation doesn't want to do,
Yeah,
right? It's helping with all of that, where you were just wrapping up sort of what you were all just kind of talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good. That's good. Chris or Mike, do you anywhere that you've
Well,
other
the cobots to me are, as Stephanie said, I think they're a way to augment your process. You know, how can we do things with a higher quality and more efficiently? And Stephanie raises a great point. Um, the cobot doesn't take breaks, but the cobot can break down too. So it's identifying a process. It all starts with the process, identifying a process that is really strong, and then going back to the employee side of it, having an employee look at this process and say, okay, I got 6 steps here. How can we become more efficient, knock it down to 3 steps? What do I need? Right. And then using things like cobots or any type of automation or AI, whatever it might be, to improve the process, not for their own workspace, but for the entire business. And let's face it, if you can become more efficient in today's world, whether it's with AI or automation or cobots, that benefits the company versus anybody else. So it's a combination of all the above.
Good. So going into sort of the end of getting your sort of wrapping up some of this and hoping we get some time to wrap up some questions, I want to look at some of the future. So what do you see as maybe some of the next wave of skills that we talked about? There's the big gap, right? We had what we had in World War II and what our skills were then and what they still are now. What we need to replace and maybe what we need to kind of go for. What do you see maybe coming in the future? What are the skills we need to help do now, and what do we need to do in the future for workforce development?
Well,
A wonderful question.
yeah, I think some of the things that people who are looking to continue to advance in manufacturing or get started in manufacturing need to look at is, we're dealing with massive amounts of data that's going to be generated by all of this AI technology that we've been talking about. So being able to come in and, understand the programming, understand how to troubleshoot when these types of data dumps happen. They're going to need a basic understanding of how the AI works together, how the machine learning works together with the AI. And, just have some ideas of, ways that you can bring value in spite of the AI, right? So, having the soft skills to be a good communicator, be a good leader, be driven, if there is an opportunity, raising your hand first and stepping up and asking, to take those opportunities. So I guess it's a combination of soft skills and just understanding where this new technology is going to lead us is what I would recommend people start focusing on if they're not already.
And I love what you've said, Stephanie, and would tack on and say, I want to find people who are systems thinkers, who think in terms of the whole system, not think about, I just want to do my little part here. How does your little part fit into everything else? our responsibility as the leaders of our organizations is to help people understand where that fits in and to broaden their perspective. And having somebody coming in with not preconceived notions about, I just want to be a pair of hands. Candidly, the pair of hands is a cobot. That's not what we want anymore.
Right.
A generation or two ago, I had associates who said, I just want to be a pair of hands. Just let me come in, do my work, and you give me a paycheck every other week. That's not sufficient anymore. I want people curious. I want people that say, how could we do this better? How does this fit into the overall system? What are we trying to accomplish? And our job is to train people to think like that and to find people interested in thinking like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, I agree. Again, if I had a a blueprint to start a company, I would say create a culture of curiosity.
Mm,
And
love
and
that.
Mike, you just kind of alluded to that, and that's what we need. We need a culture of what ifs. We need a culture of I'm not just doing this. I'm like looking at this from a big picture, and how do I achieve our goals by trying this and trying that, and doing this and getting the training for that. Creating that culture of curiosity, creating the culture of consistent what ifs, I think, is where we have to go in the future, because those tools are coming to us. We have to be able to utilize those tools, and that's, I think, is a game changer in our world of workforce development, engagement, and retention. Is create that of, we have all these different tools out there. How do those affect your job and your success in your job? And um, that's a I think that's a blueprint of success is curiosity.
I'll add on to that and say that's one of the key questions I ask in the interview process as we're considering candidates. But we specifically look for three characteristics for people to work for us, regardless of the job. One is, are they a positive producer? Are they somebody that says, what do we need to do? Let's get about doing it. And other people want to work around them. A second is resilient problem solvers. If we've got somebody that says, I've never had a problem, I've never gotten knocked out, you know what? Keep moving. I want somebody that's overcome challenges and figure out a way to solve problems, because I guarantee we're going to have them.
Oh, yeah.
And the last is a great teammate. Are you somebody that other people can count on? Are you somebody who just shows up on game day? Or are you there to practice every day, systematically getting better, encouraging the people around you? Those are the characteristics we seek out explicitly.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
in the I'm using Ted Lasso these days as a bookshelf of great quotes and comments. But in one of the scenes, he talks about, and I wrote it down. It's be curious, not judgmental, which is a Walt Whitman phrase, right? And that to me sums up where we as company leaders have to go in manufacturing.
Yep.
It's undeniably an exciting time to be in manufacturing, and I can tell just from my fellow presenters here today, they're excited to be in manufacturing because there's so much evolving, so much coming, and so much need out there. And on the buying side, it's so fun to find people who say, "Hey, I need help. Are you somebody that I can count on? Are you?" And we've got to make sure we've got the team together that they can count on. When you do that, magic happens.
Yeah. And it's good to see, and kind of putting a big bow on things and wrapping things up. It's good to see as a workforce development person and someone who has spent I spent about 12 years in the higher ed field before I came into this, right? It's good. I've been on both sides of the world, and it's good to see that we are seeing a shift and we are seeing things, people realizing the trades are coming around. It's good to see that the opportunities are there for both, right? We aren't just focused on one or the other. I'd like to see the opportunities opening up and people realizing that it's not just a college world, that opportunities are there for both, right? Both. And I love to see that opening up. So parents in the world, please open up the doors for both. And workforce development, I love to see companies who are investing in their people, that the opportunities are opening up, and that, as you all have said, career pathways, and seeing that those opportunities are there for people to know that, those signs are on the walls, that opportunity is there, and people want to see that you are investing in them and giving them the opportunity. So thank you all for on that side, for our panelists for being here. Thank you so much. Do we have Lou and Allie? Do we have some questions coming in?
Yeah, actually we do. First of all, thank you everyone. That's very insightful. There was a lot of discussion about problem solving and then finding people with that capability. Do you have any training toward that, or is there anything out there, or is it just some type of quality that you look for in people coming in the door? I mean, how can problem solving be developed?
As far as the people that you're trying to retain, or where do you go to retain them?
I think both. I mean, looking in the first place, you're looking for problem solvers coming in the door.
Sure.
But the people you have in place, like, how do you work with them to say, hey, here's a process we could do better. I'm noticing this here. How do you establish that communication and get them to open up on it?
So for us here, going back to kind of the soft skills, when we're doing our recruiting and our interviewing process, that's one of the things we look for, is just the soft skills that are going to match our core values, because we have some very specific core values of things that we're looking for in a person. One of the biggest ones is, do they have grit? So we will do things within the interview process to see how people handle change or handle, this situation, things like that. And that gives us a lot of insight into, what type of person is going to be coming in the door for us. So we really place a heavy emphasis on the soft skills in the beginning, because I'm a believer that you can train somebody on the technical side of things. There's so many courses and programs and things like that, but how somebody was raised, the experiences they've had in life, you have no control over that, right? So you have to see what that person is like, and if they're going to fit within the culture that you're trying to build. So we do on that side of things. Once they're in the door, I think that one of the biggest impactors of culture and just getting people up to speed or where you want to see them is your management team, the people that are directly interacting with those employees. So we actually spend a lot of time with the direct managers. So your shop floor managers, your plant managers, the people that are responsible more or less for the overall culture of the company. And it does have to come from the top down, but those are the people that are interacting with those individuals every day. And so making sure that they understand how to be a good leader, how to meet their people where they're at, how to display the core values that you're trying to show them. Basically living it and breathing it. So those are kind of the two things that we focus on, is, looking at the soft skills coming in the door, and then making sure that the people that are responsible for them, are displaying those in a healthy way.
Great.
And I'll add to that and say, I think it's, you have to be clever in your interviewing process.
Yes.
To try to uncover how people have dealt with problems. Hey, tell me about the worst thing you ever happened to you. What'd you do about it? It's a little bit too obvious.
Yeah.
I just care too much is, my big negative for me. I just care. Try to avoid those kind of responses. But it's also about talking to references and understanding where their lived experience and whether or not that's going to fit in well with what you have. Knowing full well you're not going to bat 1,000, but if you can bat 400, see in Cooperstown.
And I can also add that in our Management Development Academy, we do have a whole session on problem solving, and it is a skill. It can be trained and taught, but yeah, it is a process to learn.
And earlier in our discussion, talked about SEO and GEO, about attracting job candidates. Do you have any lessons learned in using those tools? Anything you'd like to impart to our audience?
Well, just to be clear, GSO I'm referring to is generative search optimization.
Yes.
So if somebody is saying in an AI tool, I'm looking for these characteristics of a job, and you need to make sure that your web and social presence mirrors that by essentially answering questions that people may be asking. It works in marketing to your prospective clients as well as to your prospective associates. So think in terms of answering questions that somebody's going to be asking. That's the quick ABC of it.
Okay. And I did want to add one more thing. You know, we talked so much about cobots and automation and everything else. Have you made, in my travels, when I go through plants for articles and things like that, it always comes into the discussion that, you know, we brought in this new automation, this cool press tending equipment, or, you know, material handling for, you know, laser cutting or punch presses or whatever. But, you know, these companies, they didn't think about it till after the fact, but they really have a showcase there. They could get video out, they could go to schools, whatever. They show the kind of stuff they're doing. They've told me it makes an impact. Can you talk maybe for a minute or so about maybe some of your efforts in that regard, maybe highlighting your high technology and if that's paid off for you?
It's a great question, and we're just investing probably $500,000 right now on a piece of automation equipment that is about as sexy as you can get with regards to automation. And the automation equipment is going to provide us efficiencies, quality improvement, etc., labor improvement. But the most exciting and hopefully the biggest ROI on it will be twofold. Number one, getting people excited about what we do in manufacturing, hence your question about employees. And then conversely, getting a customer to go, wow, these guys, you know what, they're investing and they're doing it the right way. And, you know, using that, I'll call it a case study to generate a level of wow or aha moments. And we can push that through our website. We push that through LinkedIn. We've had more success finding people through LinkedIn than we've had probably any other place at this time for the last probably year plus. But I think the reason we're successful there is because we're constantly, as I said in the beginning, selling our company and selling the value of joining our company and selling the value of this position. So it kind of works hand in hand.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that. There's for example, you know, our South Carolina division is getting a new piece of equipment right now. We're in the process of installing a 8K kilowatt laser. And the tech school down the street got word of this, and they have a cohort of students that are coming through next week. You know, to try, they're going to be the first ones to turn it on and try to problem solve through how to get it running. You know, I mean, that's great news for us. Two birds, one stone. We got students interested, and I don't have to have employees over there trying to figure out how to turn it on. So, I mean, that's a win-win. You know, but I mean, we use a lot of social media as well. You know, constantly just blasting that out, making sure you have good SEO, a solid website, good landing pages on your websites. You know, those are all things that are going to just, you know, enhance that presence and kind of draw people in, future employees and customers.
A lot of those future employees are in high school today, or in a local technical college. Our job is to get out there where they are, not expect them to cross our threshold. We need to cross their threshold first and invite them to come across ours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's millions of open jobs, skilled positions that are with companies that have great benefits, it's great pay, all these different perks, and they just have all these openings, and so you're right. It's about getting out to them and educating them on, the different opportunities that they might not know about.
Mhm. And it's great that you're highlighting your technology to do that. I mean, there's so much competition for cool these days. You're competing with, gaming, with everything everyone sees out there all the time. So anything you can do to say, hey, you're part of the future world, come join us. That's got to pay dividends, I would think.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that kind of brings us to the end. I'd, like to thank everyone on the panel. I appreciate taking the time. A lot of good stuff in these 55 minutes here. And what we're going to do now, I think we're going to take a quick break and come back at 11 Eastern. That's about 4 or 5 minutes for our final panel presentation. Growing Your Customer Base, moderated by my colleague Brad Kubin, Editorial Director of Metal Forming. Thanks for joining us for the Metal Fabrication Strategy Summit, and we'll see everyone in a few minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, and thanks to Chris and Mike for coming back on for this final session, and we welcome Colin Cosgrove to the panel. Before you guys introduce yourselves again, and I don't know that Chris and Mike have to do that too much, but so I'm Brad Kubin. I'm the editorial director here, as Lou said, and I want to thank everybody for attending our 3-day webinar series, which ends with this session on growing your customer base. So in today's metal forming and fabrication facilities, and I think you'll all agree, one of the trends that's become clear is this shift towards shorter part runs and higher mix for a lot of you, especially those that are offering fabrication as well as stamping. We've also, in leading up to this meeting, we've talked about how your customers have tighter lead times. They want you to meet those tighter lead times. They're looking for more customization. Flexibility to change direction at a moment's notice seems to be a critical characteristic of your shops. If you can respond to those demands, it creates great opportunities, right, to attract new customers, but it also can put enormous pressure on your company and your production team. So I think all of this really requires you to rethink how you schedule your work, how you tool up, how you handle job changeovers, and ultimately, the point of this session is how you manage the types of customers that you elect to work with and the types of jobs that you choose to get involved with. So again, that brings us to the topic of this panel discussion, and it is now my pleasure to welcome our 3 panelists. I guess, for the sake of argument, Chris and Mike, if you want to introduce yourselves and your companies again real quick, we'll have Colin do that as well, and then we'll jump into the line of questioning. So Chris, maybe you want to just once again introduce yourself and your company.
Certainly. Chris Uzik, Vice President, Waukesha Metal Products, metal fabrication, metal stamping, 3 locations, 2 in Wisconsin, 1 in Mexico. Just shy of 200 employees, been around since 1971. I've been with the company going on 10 years now, and I also sit on the executive board for PMA.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I'm chairman and CEO of Tusco MFG. We're in ex-urban Ohio. Business has been here 77 years. I've been here a majority of those. We focus on custom metal fabricating, including powder coating, some woodworking, some plastic fabricating as well, because about half of our business is making custom store fixtures and point-of-purchase displays for brands used in retail locations around the world, and a little less than 100 people.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. And Colin, last but not least.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Brad. Good to see you and everyone else again. Colin Cosgrove, President of Leiston Manufacturing. We're in the city of Chicago, and which is entirely optimistic of us. And we've been here it'll be 75 years next year. So we're about 70 odd people, maybe a little bit more than that. all fabrication. We used to be a stamper, we're not anymore. So we've got some background there and gone through that transition. Excited to be here for the panel.
Thank you. So the first question we're going to pose, and I'm going to start with Chris, and then you guys, Mike and Colin, please add the importance of being able to work with potential clients and attract them through expertise in design for manufacturing, which we talked a little bit about in a previous session, as well as prototyping. How important has that become, and those two abilities, and how are all of you kind of evolving with expertise in those two areas?
Yeah, it's becoming a necessity, primarily because of the world that we live in today with our customers and their products. A design today may change tomorrow, may change 3 times before next week, Wednesday, right? So we take the approach of cradle to grave with our customers. We start out with prototyping. We work with them on as a contract manufacturing company, we're not coming up with a design. We're working with our customers to help them be successful. And the best relationships are the ones that are give and take from the perspective of, is it manufacturable, et cetera. So if we can work with our customer from the beginning, prototype, and then move into production, and then in some cases they graduate to a volume that justifies the staffing, we can help them do that. So it's a necessity, regardless of the industry you're in, is to be nimble, to be able to change, to pivot on a dime if you have to, because that's what our customers' expectations are.
In our business, we have a heritage of designing as well as engineering and producing custom store fixtures and doing it quickly. If you can go anywhere in the world and have all the time in the world, you will go anywhere in the world. But many times our brand clients have retailers that say, hey, I got to have this in my store in 6 weeks. You're not going to Phnom Penh, or you're not going to anywhere in Asia or Europe to get it done, most likely. So that's kind of where we focus. We've been able to take the fact that our ISO 9001:2015 includes design. So we have that design perspective going into projects. And when we're working with non-display clients who we can provide occasionally, most often clients won't let you, but to make design suggestions at least for making improvements in the way something may work. We also think about it not just in the prototype stage, but also all the packaging. How does something get from point A to point B, and how many times is it going to be handled, and how does it get opened? How does it get assembled if there's assembly involved? How does any off-fall get recycled or disposed of? We're able to think rather holistically, about that more than, hey, I'm going to make this part and it's going to cost you a nickel. So prototyping incredibly important, and it has led us into doing more high mix, low volume work for clients who sometimes are looking for hundreds of SKUs with per SKU counts that you can count on one hand.
Yeah.
So it's like doing a whole bunch of prototypes in some cases.
Colin, how about you?
Yeah, we've had a strategy for a long time of doing prototypes and design for manufacturability with customers. I think almost every fabricator out there does on some level. Actually had a customer earlier this week on a call with a new customer, and a sourcing manager literally asked me the question. He said, this is our first order with them, and it's a low volume prototype development, and it's for their customer. And he said, look, is this something that suits you guys? Like, is this something that is aligned with that you want to be doing? And it was a great question, because he's trying to understand who we are, and if this is something that in terms of long term, does this fit? And I said, absolutely, 100%. And in the context of that particular discussion, we were actually pointing out some design characteristics that we don't know the application for, It looked like an electronics type cabinet. And we asked our questions, looked at, there's a hole here. Does that make sense? Is that actually, is the design intent there correct? And so look, from a couple of different angles, it's definitely something we want to do. One is, does this support the long-term? We don't think in quarterly returns. We think in long-term relationships that have depth and resonance with customers. And if we can develop those, then we don't want to be a one-stop shop for everything. I'm not going to compete with somebody like, it was Mike, I think, was saying there's some wood and plastic and stuff like that. That's probably not going to be our bailiwick because you're focused on a different type of market a little bit.
Yeah.
But we do want to be able to satisfy a range of people at the customer. And the engineering side, the commercial side, the sourcing side, you have to have multiple types of conversations. And on the one hand, as a solution provider, which is what we're all doing, we're all providing services and solutions typically. So as a solution provider, we want to be able to provide layers of solutions. We're also just kind of curious, and we're also sort of metal dorks. Like we're fabrication geeks, like this is fun work to go figure out. And so we kind of scratch our own itch in that respect as manufacturers. But we're delivering this value. And at the end of the call, that same guy who asked that question said, this was fantastic. You guys are asking us questions we didn't even know we needed to be thinking about. And I think and this is a good company who does great assembly work, but they're not a fab company. And this has been developing, I would say, over the last 15 to 20, 25 years, whereas a shift has happened where the customers, especially large customers, tend to be relying on the small to mid-size suppliers for a depth of expertise that they outsourced when they went away from vertical. What's the word I'm looking for?
Integration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a customer about 15 years ago who said to me he wanted me to come in and do a Fab 101, metal fabrication 101 for his young engineers, because what they had done, and they recognize this as a business, is a big name business. You guys would all know the name of. And they said what they recognized was they had outsourced. They used to be vertically integrated. They had outsourced their machine shop. They had outsourced the internal people, and that guy who had been there for 40 years with expertise, and a young engineer would come to him and say, hey, can I bend this thing in this way? And the guy would say, no, what are you thinking? You can't do that. And they would have this conversation. They didn't have that anymore. And so he asked me to come in and do Fab 101. And I've done that multiple times. I'm sure, Mike, Chris, you guys have done versions of that also. You can even find me on YouTube with something. And that's the type of stuff that we're providing value. And I think it's really deeply meaningful to the customers.
Colin, I just want you to know I did a quick search of URLs, and the URL metaldorks.com is available.
All right.
You better jump on that quick.
Yeah,
That's too funny.
no doubt about it. I going back to Colin's point, we're also obviously seeing the changes in the tribal knowledge of a lot of our customers go away. They're retiring, right? And now the new buyers, the new engineers only know what they know. So if you can build that value and say, you can't do that way, and here's the 10 reasons why, but we can help you do this, you just made them a superstar, right? And that's kind of what we're trying to do as well in our company.
Yeah, I know that morphs right into one of our other topics that we had discussed, which is becoming or being the source of knowledge for the customer. And I think, Mike, you talked a lot about that as we were planning this session. Do you guys speak to the importance of being that source of knowledge, as Chris just did? But I'm curious too if you can share any stories of how that really played out with a customer, where you think maybe that was a difference maker for you in terms of winning a new customer and winning a job. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, I can.
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, but again, maybe 8-9 years ago specifically, there was a customer that we're making some parts for, and we got a call from them saying there was a problem. We were making some prototypes kind of running, just getting right to the production level, or just starting to, and they said, they called me and said, there's a problem. You guys messed up. I was like, got to go solve that problem right away. So I drove to the customer, and and went out on the shop floor with them and looked at the issue. And this is way of walking into this. They had two parts that were bidding against each other, and they had not accounted for the weld seam. And so they brought it apart right up against it, and they didn't. So it wasn't actually something we did at all. We made the parts perfectly to print. We didn't see the next level of assembly that they were doing. And so we'll say, okay, look, here's what we need to bring to you. Help us look at that next level. Help us look at the impact of these designs that you're doing. We can put a simple notch there. It's a very simple way. Again, it's the smallest. Add a notch to a little piece of sheet metal. It may not sound like expertise, but it matters when it impacts the next level of assembly that the customer is doing.
Sure.
And so just walking them through how to develop the CAD file correctly was important to them, because that was really where the error was. They had just put a symbol in there. They hadn't actually put the weld in there. And understanding the application of that, again, if you've got your internal fab shop and you're vertically integrated, you'll recognize it over the years. But when you don't, it's something they outsourced. And it was a very simple example, but that the CAD file is a big thing. We've gone back to customers and said, a very simple thing. And this came from one of our programmers and said, it is so much easier in my life if the customer's engineer will just click unform, there's a button, or unfold, and it will eliminate issues that they have when they develop these funky designs. If they eliminate that just by clicking unfold, just hit that button in the middle of the process. That's all I'm asking them to do. And it would save hours and hours and hours of time. And so those are little examples of very practical, pragmatic things to have those conversations with, but you need to be trusted to be invited in to have that conversation.
We strive to be the trusted advisor to our clients as well. And it really starts with the idea, are we the right fit for them? And any number of times we have referred prospective clients to competitors to say, you know what you need and what we do are not the best fit. And if we were in your shoes, here are the 3 places we would go to get this done. And it hasn't very often. It has in a couple of cases come back and paid off, where somebody said, you know what, I can't believe you did that. And I actually have a case right now I think you would be the right solution for. And it paid off in spades. And in both the cases I'm thinking of, they are long-term clients. They didn't, in another instance, more than 30 years ago, we had a client, a bit of a beauty contest, came down to 2 companies. They chose another company, and what they produced ended up failing, and they and the retailer, it was a display fixture, got sued, over the deal. And the client, who was not our client at the time, called us and said, "Help! Can you help us with this?" And we quickly figured out where the engineering error was and designed a fix and got them a fix within 48 hours. Into their facility and showed them how it would fix it. And then we executed the fix. That client is still here 30 years later. And none of the people associated at the client side, but they know they can count on us. And they have in turn referred us to other companies, and people who have worked there have gone on to other companies that said, oh, this is somebody we know can deliver, with integrity. An easy word to say, a hard word to live sometimes. And it's tough when you say, okay, here's $1 million client. And I'm saying, we're not the right fit. Tough to do. But we think it's the right thing to do. And it's kept us from getting into trouble of trying to become a square peg for my client's round hole.
Chris, do you have any more to add to that conversation?
No, I'd rather be upfront with the customer and say, you know what, thank you for thinking of us, but we're not going to meet your expectations, whatever those expectations are. And because we've all been in situations, or we've probably seen situations or thought about situations, if I take this business, this is a game changer, we'll make it work, and blah, blah, blah. And you have all these optimistic views of how it's going to flow and work, blah, and then you don't meet the expectation. And to me, that's really the worst scenario to be in, is like, we failed, and we took it on, and we went outside our box. Right. And those are not good situations to have. I'd rather be upfront. And integrity is a big part of that. I think that is focusing on what you do well and adding value where you can, but being honest and upfront with the customers if it's just not a good fit.
I'm sure that comes down at some point to the relationship your sales team has with your production people, right? And making sure you're not.
Well, I think that
Yeah.
was a point I was thinking of too, because the salesperson wants the sale,
Yeah.
and to be able to say no, we want to do that as quickly as possible, and not overlook an opportunity that could be and should be the right fit, but to quickly go for the no in Sandler sales terms, and have them convince you why it shouldn't be no, perhaps. The salesperson is a key part of delivering a value. The salesperson is just somebody taking them out to lunch and processing the paperwork and cashing their commission check. They're not delivering enough value, and we have found over time that's a big cultural change too. I want engineers out there selling who can say, "Hey, what you're trying to do here is stupid, and let me tell you why." As opposed to the salesperson says, "Whatever you want, you're right. We'll make it happen."
Send me the PO. Yeah, I agree, and the last hire that I just brought on was a technical sales specialist. To Mike's point, because I don't need a gazillion leads or a gazillion new customers. I need quality customers that are win-wins. And it's a win for us, it's a win for the customer. And those long-term relationships are, as we've all been saying, very, very, they're a great annuity, right? And if you keep on doing the right things, both parties, by the way, it's got to be a win-win for both parties, not just one side.
Yeah, I think I would, having been someone with the title of sales engineer, which I was at one point. I came from an operations background, an engineering background. I was the first kind of half of my career and moved into sales, and I knew nothing about sales. So it was really a sort of a right turn. And so all I could do was leverage my technical background to go and try to deliver value. It was just kind of the only choice I had really was to try to go do that. I didn't know how to go ask for the PO. And so, but I did know how to go in and tell customers, maybe not that was stupid, but that there was maybe a better opportunity to think about how to form something or weld something and whatnot. And that opportunity to deliver value is really is great. But I think now a number of years later, I would add on to that sort of two pieces. One foundational piece. We have to make sure that our salespeople know what our strategy is. So if they're out chasing business that's got nothing to do with what our strategy is, they're going to get frustrated very, very quickly. And they're going to feel disconnected from the organization. And they're bringing in something and we're saying, no, we don't want that. We don't want this. We don't want that. They're going to get very frustrated very, very quickly. And they're not even going to have an opportunity, to Mike's point, to deliver value because they feel that they're going to, I'm bringing a great opportunity. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? It's this size by this size. And it's just, and we're like, yeah, I know that's 6 foot long by 10 foot long by 3 feet. That's not something we can build. Don't bring that opportunity in. We want something that's the size of a microwave or whatever, right? And having that alignment is really, really important. And it's also important, even though I totally agree with you guys, like when you get those opportunities that are just not a good fit, that comes back to what's your strategy? What are you trying? How are you trying to grow the business? And sometimes you really do look at like, what is the opportunity? We've done a few of these over the years. That's just a little outside.
Yeah.
Just enough. And so, well, it's aligned with the growth that we want to get, the type of market we want to be in. And it's just a little bit of a stretch for us to go figure out how to make that, how to weld it, how to form it, how to do whatever. And so we get to, again, kind of be metal dorks, but also get to, it's fun for the team in the shop. It's fun for the engineers to go figure it out. right? And that's dynamic. And part of why we do this thing in Fab is because it's dynamic and changeable, and there's new challenges. And it also, but it's aligned with the strategy. It's like, oh, we've never done tubing before. That's got like 4 pieces of tubing that assembly. It's not an entire tubular assembly, but it's got 4 pieces. How do we figure out how to do that? How do we learn something? How do we grow? And then the next time we can do something that's got 8 pieces of tubing. And so I think those are, but if you don't have the alignment with the salespeople, with the engineering people, with the entire organization, knowing where you're trying to grow, what's your strategy, what kind of markets do you want to be in, what types of technology do you want to invest in a couple of years' time, those all feed into making those choices about when those opportunities come up. Is it the right way to, totally correct, make that decision quickly. And you can do that quickly when you know what your strategy is.
I'm wondering, maybe Chris, you're maybe and I know Colin, you evolved from a stamper into a fab shop, but is there is that synergy between sales and production more difficult to attain when you're doing short run high mix fabrication work compared to stamping, or is it going to be the same?
I think it goes
regardless?
back to that, what Mike was talking about before, that person that is out there talking to the customer and having the ability to understand kind of the value proposition between fabrication and stamping and be able to sell both, right?
Okay.
But again, I think that comes down to leadership and making sure everyone understands where we're going, right? Here's where we're today. We want to go to here, how we're going to get there. Here are the things we're going to do, and execute on that, right? And Colin's right. I mean, you have to stretch sometimes, and those are hard decisions because there's a fear of the unknown, right? What if I don't get an ROI? If I have to stretch and buy $4 million worth of equipment to make this work, what's the payback? How can I repurpose this equipment after the program ends? All those things are part of the big picture, but I think you have to look at some stretch opportunities sometimes. That's just the nature of the beast.
Sure. Okay. So we talked about, at least at the very beginning, I talked about some of the requirements it seems that customers in this short run high mix world are looking for, which is, and Mike, you alluded to it as well, this quick turnaround, quotes and delivery in both of those instances, once the parts have already been designed and engineered. What are you guys doing on your shop floors? What are some of the lessons that you've learned to enable you to say, yeah, we can get that job done in, maybe it used to be a couple of weeks and now it's like 3-4 days or less than a week in some cases. How are you? I'm assuming you say, yeah, we can do that, or you've structured your shops to be able to do that. In case you are willing to accept these shorter turnaround jobs, and what's the technology and the training on the floor that's enabled you to handle customers that are looking for that quick turnaround? Maybe it's also, last minute design changes. You need to be agile, right? And quick to respond. So I don't know who wants to address that first, Mike. You want to?
Well, I will jump in and say, caution. It's more on the front end than it is on the shop floor. The strain on your systems to be able to turn quotes quickly, accurately. You may be able to do it fast, but are they, how accurate are they? How many errors do you make along the way by doing it quickly? And then getting the engineering right, getting the documentation onto the floor, whether it's in digital form or even in paper form, getting it into the hands of the right people who can interpret it, effectively. For a company my size, I have 6 engineers, and, we spend a lot of time on the front end so that when it hits my floor, it goes fast, measured in days, not weeks. And so having a really robust ERP system that you can be in the sandbox to figure out, okay, if we take this order today, when does it hit each of the work centers along the way and come popping out the other end? I have a lot of friends in fab and stamping world, and most of them through PMA. And people talk to me about high mix, low volume, and I say, feel free. Your systems will undergo such stresses that you'll be better if you survive it. But the cure can be worse than the disease you think you're fighting at times. So you've got to have really robust systems in place to be able to pull it off. And then it's a matter of just serving it up, and again understanding, do I have the right production rate for this particular work center? And hey, I thought we'd be doing 100 an hour, and we're doing 10 an hour. Okay, what did that just do to everything else in the mix? It influences everything. And at any given time, we have a couple hundred jobs on our floor, and one problem here can throw off everything in the mix. It's like being on having plans to fly somewhere, and a storm in an entirely different part of the country hits, and it impacts you and your flight because the plane couldn't get there, whatever the cruise and everything else. So really understanding the communication requirements and the clarity and the confidence that you need to be able to do this before it ever hits the floor.
Yeah, and having a good ERP system, to Mike's point, is really critical, because if it's used correctly, and this is a little bit of where AI can come into play too. If your ERP system is used correctly, you can look at where your current capacities are by work center and determine if it's going to blow up or not going to blow up, right? And it also comes down to your quality, the type of equipment you have. Right. So your flexibility of a job you can run lights out, a brake press that you can run lights out, gives you some more flexibility in those type of situations versus if you have to manually do a brake press the whole time. So it all comes down to a couple of different variables, right?
Colin, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking of an example that may be illustrative. A number of years ago, I got a call on a Wednesday afternoon. I was actually on vacation. I was out of town, and I got a call from somebody who said, "We need some parts right away." I'm okay. What? And this was somebody new, but it was a reference from an existing customer. Great, wonderful introduction. Looked up, kind of did a little research who the company is. Kind of like, oh, this is a nice company. This maybe fits strategically with what we want to do. Okay, what does fast mean? Because fast means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And they said they wanted parts a week later, if not sooner. And it was a relatively simple part, just kind of exterior of a cabinet, just a component of a cabinet, kind of a wraparound type of a thing. And so we said, okay, well, we think A, are they aligned with what we can do? Yes. B, can we quote it quickly and understand exactly what you guys said, all of the different characteristics? Again, it was a relatively simple part. The issue here was timing and speed and moving. Do we have enough knowledge? Is it strategically aligned? Do we have enough knowledge to quote it quickly? Do we have the people to quote it quickly? Because we got a couple of different people we can move quotes around between. We can quote it very quickly. We can understand, what the value is of this to the best of our ability from a margin standpoint, because we're going to highly value that speed and that turnaround. So we're going to try to quote it correctly. And then we're collaborating internally. Operations, planning, scheduling, quality, engineering. Can we just hit this really quickly? As Chris said, what's on our equipment right now? What can we move out? What can we adjust? All of this is collaborative. All of this requires expertise in each person's domain. So we hit all of these, and then we have a flexible workforce. So we had people who could come in on Saturday. We could people who could come in on Sunday. We could have people who don't normally form parts, but they have enough training that they could, and they could come in on Sunday. So we have a flexible workforce. So we're looking at the customer strategy. We're looking at the pricing strategy. We're looking at the flexible workforce. We're looking at our equipment and understanding and capability of it. And we were able to go and source the material really quickly because we didn't have it in the shop. So we got the call on Wednesday by, I think, Wednesday night. So we got the call around noon on Wednesday. I think Wednesday night, we had it quoted. Thursday morning, we got the order. Friday morning, we got material. We cut material, lights out overnight Friday night. And we had people forming parts on Saturday and Sunday. And when I walked in, again, I had nothing to do with any of this, except basically I said, yes, let's go. And on Monday morning, when I walked in, there were 17 skids on the floor and 1,000 parts formed. And those were shipped out to a painter that night and shipped to the customer. They landed in Pennsylvania direction on Tuesday morning. So from Wednesday to Tuesday, and that's the speed of fab. That is not, there's not an unusual. I bet both Chris and Mike could tell you similar stories of things that got turned in a week. Not the most common, not something with 47 components to it, but something you can hit really quickly because you know the customer expectations, line with what you're trying to do. You've got flexibility in multiple domains. You've got expertise in multiple domains, and you can react with speed to those things. And so
I love that story, and I want to point out a couple things.
Yeah.
In both you had two vendors who are a part of that system too. It's not just what we can do internally, but can you get the material, and then can you have other processing, in your case powder coating, done on the outside, and that you have that kind of close collaboration as part of your team external to your actual facility to get the job done too.
It does all start with expedited quoting, though, right? I think that's what I'm sure your salespeople, the customers are going to ask your salespeople, how quickly can you get me a quote? So do you have, all three of you, you have that relationship between sales and quoting where, the guys doing the quotes aren't yelling at the salespeople saying, why did you tell them we could turn that quote around so quickly? And then I want to see too, Chris, you mentioned AI and ERP. And I'm sure that plays into the ability to provide quick quotes is the AI. So comment on, I guess, on both of those things, that relationship between sales and quoting and how important that is, and how you're using new tools like AI in your ERP to help with that.
Yeah, the biggest challenge we've had in the past with the quoting side is making sure that whoever's on the sales side, they have all the information needed to quote. You can't quote without SolidWorks. You can't quote without a 2D from a dimensional perspective. You got to be able to ensure you have the checklist of things before we can even start that process. And I guess it goes back to also educating the team or sales on what it is like to quote. Most of the people that are selling today or doing the sales also understand quoting or have quoted in the past. So they understand kind of the challenge. That helps. But to your other point on AI, AI, what we're using AI for, AI still can't interpret a CAD. Okay, until you teach it, it looks at a SolidWorks and says blah, right? But what you can use AI for, and we've done this internally here with some outside help, is take a look at the 2D print or the 2D requirement and print, and write some code to determine whether or not this fits from a risk assessment, if it fits in what we can do. So, for example, if it has a cleanliness requirement that is outside our scope, it will say, we'll mark it, a minus. Or if it can interpret the wording on the print. If it says stamping, or if it says fabrication or sheet metal, or if it says machining, I mean, if it doesn't identify our core competencies, it will mark it as well. So we're starting to use that. My dream is to have an AI basically just take the data of the print and then take a look at all the quotes that we've done within our ERP system and find, is there a fit there? And this is how we quoted this program for a fabricated metal plate 5 years ago. Does this match or not? And then come into some starting point. I think that will help quite a bit of getting some improvement in our quoting process. tooling or outside power, because we don't do any internal coating, we don't do any plating, we don't do any powder, we don't do any e-coat. Those tend to take a little bit longer in our world, just because we have to work with somebody for them to look at our print and then give us a quote back. But I think it starts with getting the proper information and maybe educating the customer to what information you have to give us. And then make sure the sales team gets the proper information in front of the team, estimating and program management, and let them go do their job. And I think we have to get some, like I said before, the AI tools, I think, are something that we just naturally have to look at. Well, and before I forget, on the AI tools as well, going back to what I think Mike said, there's a lot of data in there in our system about how we quoted something and what we're really running it at, because that's a big issue. Your money is in your variances, everyone. And so if you say you're going to quote something at 1,000 pieces an hour and you've never even reached that, okay, don't do it again. Lessons learned, right? So I think that's another part of AI. It can take the data that we have over all these years and give us some information about making sure we take in consideration this issue or that issue, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to disagree with you slightly. Toward the beginning, you're saying nobody's out there being able to do that. That's already happening. We've been experimenting for the last couple of years with some vendors with products to say, I can interpret it. I can take a PDF and give you a quote. Methods of manufacture, as well as the bill of material, and compare it to rates that you have done comparable things for. But it's not quite there yet, but it will be. And if you're not experimenting, my encouragement to everybody on this call is talk to your ERP vendors, talk to others as well who may be doing things that could interest you, and find a way. We're all looking for this because this is something kind of the holy grail. Wouldn't you like to have somebody hand you a set of prints and you said, $11, here you go. Here's your price instantaneously, because I know, and everybody on this call knows, the quicker you can turn around a quote, the higher the probability you're going to get the job. And if you don't do it quickly and somebody else does it quickly, by the time you get back to them, has this ever happened to you? I couldn't wait. I already placed the order, regardless of what your price was. So striking that balance between speed and accuracy, and ideally melding the two so you quickly, instantaneously in time, and it's not that far off, be able to use the information that's already in our systems to be able to accomplish this. I know we're not far off. And I'll make a shameless plug for Epicor Prism, which is one of the sponsors of this. And we're longtime Epicor users. We're part of the Prism family as well. The strides being made in using AI with our own information internally, because you don't want to send it out to OpenAI. The valuable insights, we're awash in data and starved for wisdom. AI is going to help us get wiser than ever with our own information. It is absolutely just around the corner.
Awash in data and starved for wisdom. I like that.
Great phrase.
Colin, you want to comment on this before we?
Yeah, when we're talking about, I think it maybe started with getting the right information in and to associate the relationship between sales and estimating or quoting, and prompted by the universe. On my other screen, an email popped up that was a rep. So many of us work with reps, some don't, some have direct sales. Well, we have a rep who sent something in 2 nights ago, and his first question was, hey, I think this fits what you guys are trying to do. Does this fit? I got this opportunity. It looks good. I'm checking with me first. Do you want to take a look at this? I looked at it and said, absolutely, yes. Actually, that looks fantastic. Thank you very much. Great. And I shot back a couple of quick questions because the email had some, It had some PDFs, it had some SolidWorks, it had some Excel bill of material type stuff, but it didn't have things like packaging requirements. And I didn't do a deep dive into the prints. This was, what day is today? Thursday. This was 8 o'clock Tuesday evening. And I just saw it, and it was a quick response. What are the quality requirements? What are the packaging requirements? What volume did I see the EAU, but what volume did I actually want to receive parts in? Do we need a prototype first, like, or a qualification or something? So a couple of quick questions from me. But yes, this looks great. So we get it in, and we internally send it over to our engineering group, or the estimating part of our engineering group. And I just saw the email pop up. So that was Tuesday evening. So sometime yesterday, engineering had a chance to dig into it. And the email that just popped up, I did a quick counter asking for 22 files. Now, these are some sort of assemblies that have multiple components to them. So they're asking for 22 files, some specifications, some welding specifications, some finishing specifications, some component parts that we don't have. So to the point, we can't move forward with the quality information. So our first pass within, 36 hours is going back to the potential customer to say, we need all this information before we can really move forward, because our hands are tied on the quality of quote. I mean, maybe we could make something up. Now, probably not on this one. There's enough missing information. There was a product a couple of weeks ago that we got in, and it was a rep brought it in, and he said, "Do you want to look at this?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And it was like a TIFF file inside of an email. And I said, we can kind of see that, we can see the overall dimensions, we know what the material is. And I said, look, and they wanted this really, really quickly. And I said, I can quote this. I can get you a number. It won't be a number I can stand behind if they actually want to move forward with an order, and we can't make parts based on it. So it was strategically aligned. Go back to that again. So, yeah. But it was like, we can't go turn this into product, but we probably have enough information to generate a quote that's within plus minus 10%. And if that's enough for you because you want it next week, then okay. But I can't do anything until you get me more information. And then, I think also, I think it was Chris, maybe both of you said it, that return back from when you quote something, you land the order, you get it in, maybe not on the first prototype order. I mean, you learn from that, maybe, but certainly once you get into production, if you don't have a feedback loop that's telling the quoting and estimating group where the gaps are, what's changing, then that's certainly an opportunity where anyone, and this is true of staffing too. I mean, that feedback loop is really, really important. So you continue to refine your quoting process.
Very good. Very good. I want to move on to the next, really our last topic, and I know we're up against time-wise, but we talked a little bit as we planned this session on prospecting new customers, and it almost seems like it's a similar process to finding employees. You're using the right SEO terms, but you're also using the right GSO terms. And Mike, you said when we were talking, you said without strategy, everything looks like an opportunity. Talk a little bit. I know you're actively, I think all three of you are, but I know, Mike, you've talked a lot about how you're really carefully selecting who you want to continue to work with, maybe getting rid of some customers, but that strategy of prospecting and making sure, and you talked a lot about using GSO, which I hadn't heard company executives talk about in the past, using GSO so that you're found by prospective customers with the right search terms. Tell us how you're using that. And I know, Chris, you've talked about that as well.
Well, the requirements to be found when somebody is using an AI tool are different than a traditional Google search. And I imagine everybody on this call asks a prospect, how did you hear about us? Where did you find us? And so often the answer comes back, Google. Just doesn't tell us a whole lot. Over the last year, we're finding more prospects are finding us with an AI tool, and if they say they've used, and so it's really not SEO anymore, search engine optimization, but it's generative search optimization, or GSO. And there are a couple other terms out there, but that's the one that we use when talking about it. And so we have restructured all of our web presence, social presence as well, to be more attractive to those AI bots than to the traditional Google kind of things. And it's fundamentally, you need to be answering questions that people are likely to be asking. And how do you learn about that? And we're iterating with this. When somebody says, I use ChatGPT or, whatever, we say, would you share your prompt with us?
Oh, okay.
And most often, probably 80% of the time, somebody goes, yeah, sure. Here you go. And it's amazing because they, in fact, are describing us. Now, how exciting is that when somebody is looking for who you are? And there's a mechanism to actually find us, as opposed to SEO, which says, Bing, I put in a quick search term, and I get a million responses that I have to sift through. That's not that helpful, right? With the GSO, the old way was, how do I ask a short question and I end up with a long answer? Now people are understanding, I want to ask a long question to get a short answer, the short list. One of our, and I think I shared this with you before, Brad. One of our prospects came to us. They're in the UK, but they're looking to do something here in the States. They have a business presence here in North America as well. And they their prompt got them 7 prospective vendors. We were one of them. They shared who the other 6 were too, which was fascinating for us. So we understand what the competitive set is, which was very helpful. Half of whom we'd never heard of, which was interesting too. And it gives you a level of precision that you can then say that here's my ideal client, and I want my ideal client finding me. So, if your marketing firm, whether or internal marketing folks aren't talking about GSO, fire them, because this is where the game is now. This is where the game has moved.
Thanks for sharing that. And Chris, I know you had talked about, which I also hadn't heard of before, this intent-driven search where you're looking for companies that are searching for the things that you make. I find that interesting. Tell us more about
that. And what Mike was talking about with GSO and what we're trying to do from intent, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's about the quality of opportunities versus the quantity. Okay. We want the right opportunities that are fit for what we can provide value for. And so the intent side of it is using software or a subscription service to identify companies and or people who are looking for the questions that, how do I find metal fabrication for aerospace, right? So driving those questions that the intent is looking for the potential buyers. So we're using that to drive kind of what we're identifying as potential prospects. Obviously, LinkedIn. Obviously, things such as normal prospecting, is identifying the right fits for the right companies, trade shows, et cetera, et cetera. But again, all these tools we're talking about are geared towards the right type of opportunities for us.
Sure.
And because we don't have a staff of 30 people going through leads, right? We have to look at the kind of the ones that are going to provide the best value right away. Easier said than done, but that's exactly what we're trying to do. Because time is money, and again, I don't want to be a quoting house. That's not who we are. And if you want to get paid by just doing quotes, great. There's plenty of organizations you can talk to that all they do is try to get 20 quotes for a project that's worth $50,000.
Right.
That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear that not only are there these new tools out there, but that they're actually being used, that you guys are actually using them. Colin, before we wrap up, any comments on this?
No, I think in this one, I'm learning from the 2 gentlemen here in some ways, and we're I come back to thinking about, again, I may sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but it's a bit similar to the intention base. I mean, is it aligned with your strategy? And so when those opportunities do come up, are you, because for some people, their strategy is going to be, I want to burn through 100 quotes to get 2% of them, and it's enough, and that's a process. If that's your strategy, God bless. That's fine. But know what your strategy is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a strategy for anybody on this call, but there are people for whom that is their strategy, and that's the way they want to approach it. And it's just burn and go. And that's, again, if that's your strategy, go for it. But we're trying to deliver a different kind of value. And I think that's for most people, it's a better concept, is to deliver higher in the value chain and to be very selective about where you're spending your time.
Excellent. All right. Well, we've overshot our times. I really, really appreciate your time with us today as panelists. Thanks for sharing your stories and sharing some of your best practices. I want to thank the audience too for attending all 3 sessions and all the panelists and keynote speakers that joined us over the last 3 days. It's been a lot of good information. We will archive all of this on our website. You'll be able to share the link with others. You'll be able to watch it again, download the transcript, all that good stuff. So you should get an email from us with instructions on how to access the archive within the next day or 2. So again, thanks to our panelists this morning, and thanks Chris and Mike and Colin as well. And you can close your browsers, and I hope everybody has a great day.